"Sorry, we're not open yet," the receptionist said without looking up. She'd been sitting there for 15 minutes already. In her tailored blazer, pressed slacks, and a portfolio that still smelled faintly of fresh leather, she stood up slowly, smiled politely, and clarified, "I'm here for the 9 o'clock interview. Marketing coordinator." The woman behind the desk blinked, looked her up and down once, then muttered something into the phone before saying, "Someone will be with you shortly." She sat back down, her back straight, legs crossed at the ankle, hands folded neatly over the folder in her lap. The office around her buzzed with quiet energy, crisp suits, white walls, glass everywhere. A man walked by, glanced at her, then looked away. A group of 3 women walked past in heels, all identical in style and tone. Not one looked like her. She ignored it. Instead, she rehearsed her intro again in her head, led 3 successful campaigns in less than a year, increased engagement by 62%, doubled small business client retention. This wasn't her first interview, but it was the first one that felt like it had a ceiling the moment she walked in. The hiring manager arrived 7 minutes late, a thin smile, handshake too light, a flicker of hesitation in the eyes. "Oh," they said like they were expecting someone else. She followed them into a glass-walled room, every step confident, her voice smooth, answers crisp. But the manager never opened her portfolio, didn't ask about her experience, skipped the deep questions, smiled too politely, nodded too quickly. It was over in 5 minutes. "We'll be in touch," they said. They wouldn't. She walked out slower than she came in. Not because she was unsure, but because she was taking it in now, the looks, the subtle tension, the energy of a space that had already decided she didn't belong before she ever opened her mouth. Near the elevator, she paused. Voices floated around the corner. Laughter, then a sentence so careless it cracked the floor beneath her. Beautiful voice, but she's too dark for the front desk vibe. The reply came in a hush. "We have a look to maintain." She didn't move, didn't cry, didn't even breathe for a second. Then the elevator dinged. She stepped in, eyes forward, hands still calm at her sides, no tears, just clarity, sharp, clean. On the ride down, her reflection stared back at her in the chrome walls. Her skin glowed, her hair was perfect, her expression unreadable. This wasn't about skills. It wasn't even about competition. This was about perception, gatekeeping, fear. It wasn't just a no, it was a mirror. And it showed her exactly what she was about to burn down. She used to think silence was safety, that if she smiled enough, spoke gently enough, nodded along, even when the sting settled deep in her chest, the world would let her pass without damage. It never did. She remembered the first time someone called her articulate. As if they were surprised, words came out of her mouth in full sentences. She was 12. The teacher grinned like it was a compliment, and the class laughed with approval. She smiled back then, smiled so wide it hurt. She didn't know how to name the feeling, but she felt it all the way home. Like being congratulated for not being what they expected. Years passed, and the smiles stayed. At the bank, customers asked if she could get them the manager. At the office, people assumed she was the intern, even when her title was on the door. Clients addressed her assistant instead of her. A colleague once leaned in during a meeting and whispered, "You're so calm. I'd be raging if I were you." She laughed with him. Told him, "I've had practice." The truth was, she had perfected the art of shrinking, folding herself into the edges of rooms so that no one could accuse her of being too loud, too angry, too much. She learned how to make herself palatable, how to dress ambition in softness, how to carry excellence without ever looking like she was trying to win. But after the interview, something inside her stopped folding. She didn't go home and cry, she didn't call a friend or scroll through job boards. She opened a blank page and started to write. Not a resignation letter, a blueprint. She listed what she was good at, what she had built, who she had helped, the campaigns, the numbers. The strategy they never saw because they were too busy judging the way her skin reflected in their lobby lighting. Then she wrote something bigger. A concept, a space, a brand that would do everything their space never could. Not just hire differently, but lead differently. Not just include, but center. She imagined a front desk with her niece's curls, a CEO with her mother's skin. She imagined never again asking for a seat. She wanted to make a table where no one had to justify their presence. It wasn't revenge. That was too small. This was about evolution. Every microaggression, every sideways comment, every fake compliment wrapped in barbed wire had built this moment. They gave her bricks. She was about to build a castle. She worked for weeks in silence. Nights filled with notes, drafts, strategy slides. She filed paperwork, bought a domain, sketched logos on the backs of receipts. Her smile stayed, but it was different now. No longer armor. Now it was a signal. She was coming. They tried to make her smaller, and instead, they built the storm. The first few months were quiet. No grand launch, no viral post, just her and her laptop at the corner table in a cafe that never rushed her to leave. She worked under her name, with no title yet, just offering what she knew. Strategy, content, branding. The things she had done for others with no recognition, she now did for herself. The difference was simple. This time, she was in control. Her first clients came from word of mouth. A cousin of a friend, a struggling shop owner who couldn't afford the agencies. She said yes to every job, even the ones that came with late payments and blurry boundaries. She took them because they gave her practice, gave her proof, and when she delivered, they told someone else. She kept a spreadsheet of every project, not just the income, but the impact, what she learned, what she would charge next time. Each row became a step. Each name became a thread that helped her weave the foundation. There were nights she fell asleep at the kitchen table, fingers still resting on the keyboard. Nights when dinner was just tea and toast. Days when doubt crept in like fog through the window. But she kept going. Not out of desperation, but out of something deeper. Purpose. Not the kind people hand to you, but the kind you dig out of the ground with your own bare hands. She studied while she worked, online classes, marketing newsletters, free webinars where the speaker didn't look like her, but the knowledge still helped. She watched how others moved, but she never copied. She was building something they couldn't imagine. Something rooted in her experience, her perspective, her community. Soon the work changed. Her name started showing up in inboxes she hadn't reached out to. Clients came to her, they had seen what she built, they liked the way she spoke. Clear, bold, without apology. She no longer had to lower her rates. She no longer had to explain her worth. She created a brand that felt like home. The colors, the tone, the voice. It didn't whisper to be accepted. It spoke to those who had been overlooked and gave them a mirror. On her site, the imagery wasn't stock models in gray suits. It was full lips, deep tones, coils, curls, sharp eyes that had seen enough of playing small. Her team came slowly. A copywriter from Atlanta, a designer from Lagos, a strategist from Detroit, all women, all brilliant, all too used to being the only one in the room. Here, they were the room. She stopped updating her resume. She stopped asking for chances. She no longer knocked on doors hoping someone would open them. She was building her own floor plan. A place where names like hers were not afterthoughts but headlines. A place where the lobby was not a filter, but a welcome. They didn't see it happening. They weren't watching. But that didn't matter. She was not building for their approval. She was building so the next girl would never have to ask. Her calendar started to fill in ways she hadn't expected. Not suddenly, not like a viral explosion, more like steady rainfall that turned into a river. A new inquiry every few days, a referral from someone she had helped months ago, a stranger mentioning her name in a tweet that gained traction. It all started folding into itself, building something larger than the work alone. Clients returned, bringing friends. They sent messages with phrases like, "Finally found someone who gets it, and I should have come to you first." She responded with the same calm energy she always had, but inside, something lit up. Not pride, not even revenge, just the quiet confirmation that her vision hadn't been a fantasy. It was always real. The world was just catching up. Her face started appearing on flyers, digital summits, branding webinars, small business panels, conferences on representation, storytelling, power. They asked her about authenticity, resilience, leadership. She spoke with ease, not because she practiced, but because these were words she had lived. Every answer came from the bones. Her Instagram gained traction, not flashy, but steady. Clients reposted her work, founders tagged her in stories, strangers left comments about how her post made them feel seen. She wasn't curating perfection. She was building trust. Her feed became a place where people breathed easier, a place where being seen didn't come with a footnote. Then the messages started coming in from people she used to know. A manager she hadn't spoken to in years sent a LinkedIn request. A coworker who once joked about her hair now wanted to collaborate. A client who once gave her assistant all the credit now asked for her rate sheet. She responded when it made sense, ignored what didn't. She no longer owed politeness to the past. The email came in late on a Tuesday. The name in the sender line made her stop. The company, the logo, she recognized it instantly. The place that had smiled in her face and laughed behind her back. The one that had let her sit through an entire interview knowing they had already decided she didn't fit the look. The same company that said she was too dark for the front desk. They wanted to explore partnership opportunities, wanted to know if her team was accepting new clients, said they admired her rapid growth and bold brand voice, said her aesthetic aligned with their new values. She read the message twice. Then once more for the satisfaction of it. She didn't respond right away. She let it sit, let them wonder. When she finally replied, her tone was professional, warm, direct. She thanked them for reaching out, let them know her team had a wait list. She offered a discovery call, no discount. No special treatment, just business, on her terms. She hit send. Then she smiled. Because the shift in the wind wasn't just a feeling, it was happening. And now, she was the one opening doors. The waiting room was smaller than she remembered. The chairs were the same black leather, chrome legs, placed neatly under a large modern painting that tried too hard. She sat with one leg crossed, hands resting lightly on her knee. Not nervous. Not anymore. This time, she wore her own name on a badge. The logo on her laptop matched the one on her business card, her company, her terms. She didn't arrive early to impress. She arrived right on time because her schedule was full. A woman in a blazer stepped out, called her name, offered a handshake that tried to balance warmth and authority. She returned it with a nod. They walked down the same hallway where she had once followed someone else, notebook in hand, trying not to look too eager. The same hallway where the words, "too dark for the front desk," had floated like smoke from behind a cracked office door. Now the walls looked smaller, the lighting harsher. She could see the cracks in the polish. They led her into the conference room. Glass walls, long table, a row of neutral decor books that no one ever read. She sat at the head of the table. Not by accident, not by suggestion. It just made sense. The door opened again. The hiring manager walked in, same sharp haircut, same thin smile, same eyes that once flicked over her and moved on. They didn't flinch, didn't blink in recognition. They introduced themselves like it was the first time. She nodded, said her name clearly, watched their eyes pass over her face with zero recollection. It should have stung, but it didn't. This was the kind of forgetting that happens when someone never really saw you to begin with. They talked first, spoke of brand realignment, internal shifts, cultural relevancy. They wanted to collaborate with companies that brought authenticity. Their audience was changing. Their language needed updating. Their image needed nuance. Their clients were asking questions. They used words like elevate, like inclusive, like growth. She listened. She asked one question, then another. Measured, sharp, not performative, not polite, just exact. Every answer she gave was rooted in strategy. She spoke from lived experience, not slides. She spoke with clarity, not performance. And they nodded along, taking notes. She didn't remind them of who she was, of where she had once sat, of how they had cut the interview short without asking her about her experience. She didn't mention the hallway, or the receptionist who had looked past her, or the bruising comment meant to be whispered. She just took everything they offered, the contract, the budget, the campaign leadership, the rollout. Then she added one more condition: full control of the narrative. They agreed without hesitation. Later, as she stepped into the elevator, she caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. Calm, tall, unbothered, she had once ridden this same elevator down with clenched fists and quiet rage. Now she wrote it up with signed paperwork and the keys to their rebranding. This time, she was not looking for a role. She was rewriting the whole script. The campaign launched quietly. No loud countdown, no overhyped promises, just clean strategy, striking visuals, and a message that landed exactly where it was meant to. Her team executed every detail with precision. The language was sharp, the branding flawless, the rollout seamless. It didn't scream, it didn't beg, it just worked. The numbers spoke first, engagement doubled in a week, then tripled. Clients who had once declined her services circled back with sheepish emails, existing clients extended contracts early. People reposted the campaign with phrases like "finally" and "this feels real." The metrics climbed without manipulation. The growth was honest, organic, undeniable. Meanwhile, the old firm staggered. They tried to match the tone, tried to pivot, but the language felt hollow, stitched together by people who still didn't understand the story they were trying to sell. Their messaging missed. Their attempts at inclusion rang false. Every post felt like it had been approved by a boardroom afraid to offend anyone and unable to inspire anyone. The audience noticed. Comments piled in beneath their ads. Questions turned to criticism. Criticism turned to mockery. Then silence. One by one, clients drifted toward her. Not all at once, not in a wave, but in a steady, unstoppable tide. The shift was quiet but lethal. Employees began to leave. First, the junior designers. Then, account managers. One even messaged her privately, asking if her company was hiring. They said they were tired. Said they wanted to work somewhere. They didn't have to explain basic humanity to leadership during every pitch meeting. She never responded with gloating, never mentioned the firm in interviews. When asked about the competition, she smiled and pivoted. There was no need to mention names. The contrast was clear. While their numbers dipped, her brand expanded. She opened a new studio space, hired more women of color, launched a mentorship program. Every move was rooted in the same thing that built her from the beginning. Truth. Not trend, not performance, just truth. The firm tried a last-minute comeback. A flashy influencer partnership, a rebrand that looked like a washed-out imitation of hers, but it was too late. The clients were gone. The community had moved on. The energy had shifted. She walked past their office one day on the way to a meeting. The windows were dark. The lobby was empty. A sign on the door said "by appointment only," but no one was going in. She didn't stop. She didn't need to. Every lesson they tried to teach her through rejection had become a tool she used to build her empire. Every closed door became a window she broke open. They had hoped she would shrink. Instead, she grew beyond them. And now, they were the ones fading. Quietly. Powerlessly. She had not buried them with words. She buried them with excellence. The sidewalk was warm beneath her heels as she moved through the neighborhood, sun low and golden behind the buildings. She had just wrapped a strategy session downtown, something big, something new. Her mind buzzed with next steps, campaign angles, launch dates. She almost didn't notice the street at first. It was muscle memory that turned her toward it, a path she hadn't walked in years. She slowed as she reached the corner, gaze drifting up toward the glass-paneled building that once tried to pretend she didn't belong. The lobby lights were off, no receptionist behind the desk, no chatter in the hallway. The clean, polished logo that used to stretch across the front window was gone. All that remained was a faint imprint where the adhesive had been peeled too fast, like a ghost of a name that no longer held weight. A large white sign with block letters swung lazily above the entrance. For lease. She stood still for a moment. Not in shock, not even in satisfaction, just still. The building looked smaller now, the kind of small that came from knowing you had outgrown something long ago. She could see dust gathering at the edges of the frames inside, chairs slightly askew, as if the last people to leave didn't bother putting them back. No closure, no ceremony. Just an ending that came because it was supposed to. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and snapped a photo. Not for social media, not for a press release. Just for her. A quiet keepsake. She opened her messages and sent the image to her assistant. We're expanding. Then she slipped the phone back into her bag and kept walking. There was no need to revisit the past in her mind. She didn't need to relive the interview or the look of surprise that came when she returned as a leader. That story had already played out. The lesson had already taken root. Now, She thought about the second office her team was scouting, the mentorship initiative they were launching next quarter, the applicants who told her they applied because they saw themselves in her work. She thought about how far they had come without asking permission, without waiting for approval, without compromising the vision. Every step she took was its own kind of victory, but none of it came with trumpets. None of it was loud. That wasn't her style. She didn't win because she fought harder. She won because she built better. The glass doors behind her faded from view as she turned the corner, eyes forward again, already thinking of the next move. The wind picked up and pushed the for-lease sign into another gentle swing, its chain creaking softly in the quiet. She didn't look back. She didn't need to.